Hey folks, my name's Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel, the Bushcraft Padawan. Regular viewers and subscribers will know that I try to get out into the woods doing an overnighter at least once a month. I came up with the bright idea in February of this year, and so far I've managed to do it in February, March, April. I did 6 nights, May, and this is the last day of June, so I'm getting my overnighter in by the skin of my teeth. I'm in a new location today as well. I've actually been really fortunate enough to get a second permission a little bit closer to home, probably about 35-40 minute drive from where I live, in some privately owned woodland. There's a really good feel to the place, and I don't mean that in sort of a touchy-feely way. The people that own this, they run it as a sort of a community project. They regularly put on working days, family working days, for you to come in and do a little bit of work around the upkeep of the woodland and some woodland management, but learning about why you're doing it as well. That's great. The kids love that. They run some training courses quite regularly, and I'm going on my first one with them next Saturday, a week tomorrow, which will be looking specifically at the species of hornbeam and really getting to understand that particular tree. They run summer camps in the summer period. It's just a really good vibe about the place and the people that run it, and I'm really pleased and very privileged that they've allowed me to come on and do some of my overnighters and spend some time here. So that's one thing that's different about this overnighter. The second thing is that I don't have my mini Padawan with me. He's decided to stay at home on this occasion. And the third thing that's a bit different is this is much later in the day. The time right now is 17-18 hours. I've come out basically straight from work. It's very odd though, because a lot of the time I leave to come and do my overnighters mid-morning or late morning, so I've got hours and hours and hours to think about site selection and everything before it starts to get dark. Now clearly it doesn't get dark for several hours, being June in the northern hemisphere, but I am kind of cutting it fine, so it'd be interesting to see. I'm in a new location, I don't know it that well, and time is pressing on. As always, when I come out and do these overnighters, I try and have a few things that I want to achieve from it rather than just bungling around. One of them is clearly the selection of a new site. The second thing is that I want to get another cooking tripod set up, just like I have done at my other location, to make things easier when I come to cooking. And the third thing, and I'm being very mindful about the time that I've got, I'm being realistic, I hope, about the time. The third thing is that I really want to try my hand and hone, if you'll pardon the pun, my knife sharpening skills. I bought a Japanese waterstone months ago. I ruined a knife with it, I'm afraid to say, and subsequently I've been a little bit nervous about using it again. As you know, back in April I went on the bushcraft, or the elementary bushcraft course with Paul Kirtley from Frontier Bushcraft. Got much better, I think, at knife sharpening, so I'm going to have another go while I'm on my overnighter here. So this is going to be about establishing this new location, figuring out where I want it to be, getting as much done as I can in the time that I've got, and also getting some very focused knife sharpening in as well. So let's get cracking on. Well, I've stopped walking. It's about, I've been wandering around for about 2 hours now. Had a really good recce of the woods, but if I'm really honest, I haven't found anywhere where I've thought, perfect, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I realise actually that's something of a pipe dream. I guess you're never going to find a location that's absolutely suits all of your needs. But I rushed into it in the last location. For those of you that remember, I rushed to find a location. I put something up straight away, and then with the benefit of hindsight, it wasn't the right place, and I moved it slightly. And I want to avoid that this time. So although I said at the beginning of the video I wanted to find a location, I wanted to get a tripod set up, I wanted somewhere that I knew I could come back to and establish, as I've been wandering around I've kind of reflected on that and thought, what's the rush? What's the rush? I can explore these woods tomorrow morning as I'm leaving. I can explore them when I come back and do my hornbeam course in a week's time. So I'm probably not going to use the location that you can see behind me now on a permanent basis. I'm probably going to carry on looking around, finding somewhere that suits my needs, And I'm also very mindful that it needs to suit Finley as well. I need to bring somewhere where I can get him to easily, somewhere where he can enjoy being in the area rather than as it is here. It's not the best place to be for all sorts of reasons. So I'm adjusting my expectations slightly. Maybe I'll still get a tripod up. Maybe I'll still get that knife sharpened. If you carry on watching the video, I guess you'll find out. I guess I'll find out. Morning folks, well here we are the morning after the night before, and it was something of a washout of an evening. Not because it rained, just because all of the things that I said that I was going to do at the beginning of this video didn't really achieve any of them, to be perfectly honest. World's most boring video. Didn't find somewhere that I would be happy coming back to on a permanent basis, on a longer term basis. Despite wandering around for about 2 hours. I didn't set up a tripod for cooking because I spent so long looking that it cut down the amount of time I had when I got to this location, and I didn't get any opportunity to sharpen my knife. Again, the knock-on effect of it taking so long to find somewhere meant that whilst I could have sharpened my knife, I would have been doing it later at night. I'd have been doing it by head torch, and I just thought, tired, late at night, not using natural light was potentially a recipe for disaster for someone who's not that experienced with sharpening knives. So I've put that off. Wasn't a complete disaster though, by any stretch of the imagination. There are some things that I did do that I wouldn't normally do. First of all, the tarp that I set up is much higher than it normally is. I'm 6'2", and I normally set my tarp quite low to the ground. It's just old habits dying hard, I guess, from when I was in the army. But this one, I can kind of get under just by stooping slightly. So I've got a lot more headroom. You might notice at the sides here, let me get that right, the sides there, where it doesn't meet the ground means that in the morning I can wake up and see everything around me. It's a really nice way to wake up. It means that I've been able to make better use and feel more comfortable in the space under there, rather than everything sort of having to be done on my knees or hunched right over. So I think if the space allows me in the future, I'm going to carry on keeping my tarp quite high up. I did find out though that the guy lines, the lines that run down from the end of my tarp down to the ground, they only just reach the ground when it's this high. So I need to take those off, replace them with sections of cord that are maybe 2 or 3 times longer, just to cater for me having this higher tarp set up in the future. So if you want, I'm going to take you inside the tarp and show you what it was that how I normally set my tarp up. Welcome to my crib. So poncho's quite high off the ground, as I said. I run a very thin, small piece of bank line from one end of the tarp to the other, and this then, you probably can't pick that up on camera, but this then hangs down into the living area. I've got my food suspended from that. I've got some compression sacks that I use for my roll mat, and I've also got my dry socks and foot powder hanging from there as well, and my head torch is just beyond that. I also hang up any damp clothing from the night before, and my trousers were hanging from this throughout the night to get the air circulating around them, because they've got a little wet walking through wet grass and wet fur. And you may be able to just pick out on the ground my red bivvy bag. Inside there is my sleeping bag and my roll mat, and I'm using my rucksack as a makeshift pillow at the other end. If you want to find out a little bit more about my sleeping system, I'll link to it in this corner of the screen. Move the tarp out of the way. I'll move up, link to it up to this corner of the screen where I've done a previous video on how I set up my sleeping system for when I'm out in the woods. Because I didn't have the time, or because I chose not to set up a tripod yesterday evening, I just went for a very simple forked stick, drove that into the ground, and then suspended my billy can from this particular aspect of the fork stick over the fire. Very, very quick to do, very easy to find, much quicker than finding big pieces of straight wood for a tripod, cutting them down, lashing them together and getting it set out. So whilst I still like the tripod approach, I think it adds an element of permanency to the camp and allows you to do quite a lot of things with it other than just cooking on it. I did like the speed and quickness of this, and was something that I picked up from when I was on the elementary bushcraft course with Paul Kirtley from Frontier Bushcraft a few months ago. So I'll definitely be using that again when I'm in a rush and when I haven't left enough time after work to get to the woods and find somewhere decent to set up. Well, breakfast is now underway, so I'm going to use this time to collapse down the tarp, my sleeping gear, get it all ready for when I've had my breakfast and make a move back to my car. En route, I'm still going to have a look out for some other locations that may be slightly closer to the car, or that may be just better for this kind of longer term camp that I've got in mind. So I'll pack up and I'll report back in when I get back to the car and let you know what, if anything else, I've found. So here I am back at the car park. As I've been wandering back from where I spent last night, I've been reflecting upon what I said earlier on in the video around it being a washout, suggesting or inferring that it was a disaster or it wasn't worth its time. That's completely not the case, of course. I didn't achieve the specifics about what I wanted to achieve, which was new location, tripod, knife sharpening. But if we look above that, if we look beyond that, I came out to get an overnighter in the woods, and I achieved that. I came out to spend a little bit of time on my own, away from computers and away from the TV and away from screens that I do all week long. I achieved that. So in the big picture, it was a success. In actual fact, I did some things that I'd not expected to do. I hadn't expected to explore the woods as much as I did. So I achieved that. I experimented with keeping and raising my tarp much higher than I normally would. That wasn't something I'd expected to do, so I achieved that. An output of that is I know that I need to adjust the guy lines on my tarp to make them longer. So there's been a benefit in doing that. I think I'm going to carry on coming out into the woods with specific objectives in mind, like I did yesterday and like I didn't achieve yesterday, because I think it helps to maintain a focus, and I think it helps me to maintain a development journey rather than just randomly doing things. But I think it's also worth bearing in mind, all of us, that yes, we may go out into the woods to achieve one thing, we may go out for a hike or a walk to achieve something. If it doesn't pan out, that doesn't mean it hasn't been a success. You've spent some time outdoors, in the fresh air, away from the things that we probably do all day, every day, back at home or back at work. So from my perspective, I'm giving myself a thumbs up, because I think that in itself is a success. Not being the usual video, I must admit, when I go outdoors, usually there's a lot more camera time, and that's probably because I've normally got my son with me and I like capturing what he's doing and sharing that with family and friends and you guys, of course. So he's not been here, and I think also that I hadn't expected to wander around for just over 2 hours yesterday evening looking for a location. So that clearly ate into what was already a limited amount of time. Hopefully the next time I come out I'll give myself a little bit longer, or I'll have a determined location to go to, and I'll be able to capture a little bit more on film. If you've enjoyed watching this video, as always, please do give it a thumbs up. If you want to share it with anybody, you know where that share button is. If you've got any comments about what I've said here in this video, do feel free to leave them below. And as always, if you're not yet a subscriber, please do feel free to click the subscribe button, which is in this corner of the screen here, and you'll be receiving updates on any future videos that I release. As always, a big thank you for watching. Cheers.